Dorian Gray had no idea how he'd ended up on Callisto in a suit that kept changing color with his mood. The last thing he remembered clearly was checking his email over instant noodles on his crummy apartment couch. And now here he was, standing inside the Ethra spire, trying not to step on a sentient puddle of goo that kept reciting Shakespeare in reverse. The suit shifted from teal to fuchsia. Anxiety, or was it embarrassment? He'd have to reread the manual, assuming the AI hadn't deleted itself in protest. Somewhere above him, gravity folded in half and politely bowed. The spire was a feat of alien engineering, 12 stories high, self-aware and fond of narrating your internal thoughts back to you in a British accent if you lingered too long in the lobby. "Lost, are we?" it said cheerfully. "I'm fine, thanks," Dorian muttered, stepping sideways to avoid a pair of floating eyeballs in a love quarrel. He wasn't supposed to be here. Not really. He'd been a low-level cultural attaché in the Earth Interstellar Exchange Bureau, a job that mostly involved signing off on intergalactic marriage licenses and making sure no one served peanut butter at diplomatic dinners. Apparently, someone had flagged him as excellent at navigating alien customs. He suspected it had more to do with that time he stopped a misunderstanding between a mantis priestess and a grumpy Martian ambassador by introducing both to karaoke. Now he was surrounded by beings with no mouths, 4 hearts, and a lot of opinions about Earth fashion. He tightened the collar of his shifting suit and tried to blend in, which was tricky, because humans had a unique trait. They never blended in. Not when your legs didn't hover, not when your skin didn't glow, and especially not when you smiled at strangers, which, in 12-star systems, was either a romantic invitation or a declaration of war. He stood beside the buffet table, labeled edible to carbon-based organisms, mostly, and debated whether he trusted the cubes labeled meat. A cloud being next to him absorbed a few with a wet slurp and vibrated approvingly. Encouraging. He just popped one in his mouth and decided it was only partially regrettable when he saw her. She didn't walk, she moved, like gravity made exceptions for her. Her skin was a soft slate gray, like moonstone warmed by candlelight. Her hair shimmered with the hues of starlight bending through water. But it was the ears he noticed first, long, elegant, arcing back over her shoulders like midnight sails. And she was looking straight at him. Dorian froze. Her eyes widened in that way that made it feel like the room had tilted. She whispered something to her companions, tall warriors, one with a chest made of crystal, the other wearing an anti-gravity robe that fluttered despite the air being still. Then she pointed, at him. "That's my husband," she said. The words hit him with the force of a surprise planetary rotation. His cube of meat launched from his hand and landed on the gelatinous diplomat's head. The ambassador wobbled in silent offense. Dorian didn't notice. His brain had short-circuited, rebooted, and was currently stuck in the loading screen. The woman, alien, yes, but far too familiar, was smiling. The kind of smile that made you forget how to blink. He blinked anyway. "I what?" She walked toward him with absolute confidence, like she knew exactly what he would say and exactly when he would fail to say it. The crowd shifted. Conversations hushed. A spherical reporter drone zipped into position. A hologram began rendering itself nearby. Breaking. Human claimed as intergalactic spouse. She stopped 3 feet in front of him. "Dorian Gray," she said gently. He swallowed. "Yes, hi, that's me." Her voice was music written by someone who once dated a thunderstorm. "I wasn't sure you'd come. I wasn't sure I was coming until I got here." She laughed, and he was suddenly reminded of their last meeting. That moonlit night on Karin 5. The mind link, the stars, the way she'd leaned in clothes and asked if Earth raccoons really had hands. They'd talked for hours, shared thoughts, and then parted ways with a simple nod and a soft touch. Apparently that nod was a galactic equivalent of "I do." "I missed you," she said simply. He flinched. "We met once." "Once well spent," she replied, as if it were the most obvious truth in the cosmos. He glanced around. Beings stared, whispered. One reptilian vendor offered him a commemorative mug with Galaxy's luckiest groom printed in galactic runes. His suit turned pale orange, panic, maybe just confusion with a side of flattery. "Nyari," he said, the name trickling back from his memory like honey through a sieve. "You said I was your." She nodded. "That means something different to humans," he tried. "Of course," she said smoothly. "But in my culture what we shared was sacred. The memory link beneath twin moons, there's no stronger bond." Dorian made a small choking noise. "That was a date." "It was the date," she corrected. "I also linked minds with a singing fern that night." "It only counts if the fern remembers," she said. He paused. "Wait, do you remember everything?" She tilted her head. "You still think about your childhood dog. You never deleted your search history. And you taste test ice cream with a spoon but always buy cones." His ears burned. "Okay, you definitely got the real feed." She took his hand. "Would you like to explain this to my people, or shall I?" Dorian looked at the growing crowd. Someone in the back was holding up a sign that read, "I ship it." The suit flickered cerulean. "Curiosity, surrender," he sighed. "You explain." "I'll just stand here and try not to pass out." She leaned in. "You always were good under pressure." "No, I wasn't," he mumbled, as someone tried to put a flower crown on his head. "You are now," she said, and smiled again, "and stars help him." He smiled back. Dorian sat in a lounge that smelled faintly of cinnamon and cosmic radiation, sipping something Nyari swore was tea but looked suspiciously like engine coolant. Across from him, she watched with that patient amusement that made him feel like both an adorable pet and a highly flammable object. "I'm just trying to understand," he said slowly. "So when I said I liked your laugh, and then we shared a memory under the twin moons, that was marriage." Nyari nodded. "To the Alarith it was the ceremony of joining, sacred, intimate, binding across lifetimes." "I thought it was a cultural exchange moment," he muttered. She tilted her head. "It was, we exchanged culture and vows. No rings, no paperwork, no dancing awkwardly while someone's drunk uncle makes a speech." She blinked. "We did link minds under twin moons, and we touched foreheads. I do that with my cat when I get home." "Then perhaps you're married to your cat." "That would actually explain a lot," Dorian sighed. The lounge wall flickered, displaying his name in 23 languages, most of them phonetic approximations that made him sound like a sneeze. Apparently, his unexpected nuptials had caused quite the stir in diplomatic circles. Some species were scandalized, others delighted. At least one aquatic federation had declared it a shining example of interspecies bonding and invited him to judge their annual underwater poetry slam. "Okay," Dorian said. "Let's say, hypothetically, that I wanted to annul this." Nyari raised an eyebrow. "Annulling a ceremony of joining is rare. It requires the consent of at least 3 elders, a formal memory untethering, and a public declaration of disconnection." "That doesn't sound so bad." While both participants juggle fire petals and recite the vows backwards. He stared at her. "You're joking." "Am I?" He squinted. "You're joking." She smiled, mostly. A passing orb offered Dorian a complimentary head massage and some wedding-themed candy. The candy glowed. The massage orb pouted when he declined, then floated off muttering something that sounded like "newlyweds are the worst." "Look," Dorian said. "You're amazing, honestly. Elegant, intelligent, slightly terrifying in a good way. But I'm a guy who once accidentally wore pajama pants to a job interview. I'm not exactly husband material." Nyari leaned forward. "When we joined minds I saw everything, every memory, every insecurity, every ridiculous dream you never told anyone. I'm gonna need a moment to curl into a ball." "I saw your heart," she said softly. "And I chose it." "Well," he said, fidgeting with his glowing cup. "That's just emotionally devastating, thanks." Her hand brushed his. "Would you rather undo it?" He looked away. "I don't know." They sat in silence for a moment, interrupted only by a distant argument between two sentient capes debating which of them was more fashionable. One tried to strangle the other, only to be escorted out by a squad of floating cones with diplomatic badges. Dorian glanced at Nyari. What would happen if we stayed, whatever this is? She tilted her head. We'd be partners, you'd be part of my people, share in our history, travel between worlds, possibly gain mild telepathy. Mild? You'd hear feelings, not thoughts, except for one elder who shouts emotions. Sounds like my Aunt Dolores. Nyari chuckled, and you. I don't have telepathy, unless sarcasm counts. It does not. I'd bring Earth customs, I guess. Food, TV, the nuanced emotional resonance of cat videos. She looked intrigued. Cats are sacred in 6 systems. Not surprised, they act like it. A floating sphere hovered into the room. It chirped 3 times and projected a holographic invitation. A formal gathering was being prepared in honor of the first-ever human-Alarith union. The galaxy had decided to celebrate. Dorian groaned. I'm not dressed for interstellar pageants. Nyari studied him. Your suit is adapting, it's learning your moods. The suit turned purple. That's not a mood, that's confusion and mild gas. We interpret that as wisdom. I'm honored, and possibly bloated. Nyari stood. Come, if we must be symbols, we may as well be dazzling ones. He followed her through the curved corridor, passing creatures who offered nods, clicks, and the occasional bioluminescent wink. Somewhere music played, alien chords woven with frequencies that made his spine hum. In the atrium, 100 species had gathered. Holograms shimmered. Drones flew. A band made entirely of vibrating stones warmed up with what sounded suspiciously like a jazz riff. Nyari took his hand again. They're watching. Dorian whispered, should I do something profound? Just don't eat anything purple with tentacles. Too late. The band began to play. The crowd hushed. Dorian looked at Nyari, her long ears catching the light like carved obsidian. She looked at him like the chaos around them was just background noise, and in that moment he realized he wasn't scared. Well, not just scared. Something else crept in, something like joy or cosmic indigestion. It was hard to tell. He grinned. If we survive this, you owe me a proper first date. Nyari squeezed his hand. Dinner on a moon made of ice petals. I was thinking tacos, but that works. The celebration began. Somewhere galaxies turned, and Dorian Gray, unexpected groom, stood beside the woman who had once called him husband with a smile and maybe, just maybe, meant it forever. Dorian woke up to the sound of someone arguing with the bed, not metaphorically, literally. The bed was making its case in a calm, synthesized voice, while Nyari stood at the foot of it, arms crossed, ears twitching. I am programmed to optimize rest based on circadian feedback, the bed insisted. You folded him like a space ravioli, Nyari said flatly. Dorian groaned from inside a cocoon of temperature-adjusting memory foam. I think I saw the inside of my own spine. I'm sorry, the bed added, not sounding sorry. Human sleep patterns are suboptimal. Welcome to Earth, Dorian muttered, crawling out of the bed like a molting insect. Where suboptimal is the baseline and caffeine is our primary religion. Nyari handed him a cup of something that shimmered and smelled faintly of nutmeg and burnt electrons. Drink this. He sipped. Oh, this tastes like ambition and regret. Alarith morning tonic. Figures. They sat together near the window wall, watching gravity rearrange itself outside. Small courier drones zipped past like caffeinated gnats. Beyond, the Aethra spire floated above the ice plains of Callisto, held in place by gravitational anchors and whatever advanced math counted as glue in alien engineering. So, Dorian said, yesterday we were declared the symbol of interspecies harmony. Today, I have 17 wedding proposals in my inbox. One of them might be from a sentient fog. Nyari arched an eyebrow. Did you accept? I did not accept. I think I responded with a gif of a raccoon eating spaghetti. In our culture, that is considered a binding agreement. Great, so now I'm accidentally polymarried to a cloud. She smiled. You're adapting. I'm spiraling. There's a difference. The terminal pinged. A new message from the Council of Galactic Relations, politely requesting their presence at a diplomatic roundtable to discuss the future of emotional diplomacy. Attached was a lengthy briefing full of phrases like cross-empathic resonance models and emotional protocol calibration tables. Dorian skimmed it, stopped at a diagram featuring two stick figures hugging while one exploded, and promptly closed the file. Nyari stood. We should go, they're expecting us. Can't we fake our deaths and open a donut shop on Neptune? They have strict pastry regulations. Of course they do. As they walked through the spire's main corridor, various species greeted them. One crystalline being bowed and gifted them a small cube that hummed lullabies when shaken. A mantis diplomat complimented Dorian's skeletal symmetry. An alien child with 3 eyes and a lollipop waved and called him Mr. Who's Band, which made Nyari laugh until she had to lean against a wall. They arrived at the summit chamber, an enormous sphere with 0 gravity and chairs that orbited like confused satellites. Delegates floated in their respective bubbles, a rainbow of biology and bioluminescence. The council's speaker, a being composed entirely of shifting light shards, addressed them. Dorian Gray, Nyari of Alarith. Your union has catalyzed a paradigm shift. Dorian nodded, glad to help unintentionally. We wish to explore how your bond might serve as a framework for future emotional treaties. Nyari answered smoothly. We are willing to share our experience. Dorian hesitated. As long as no one tries to harvest my feelings for research, I'm still dealing with unresolved issues about group chats. There was a collective ripple of amusement, including a being who expressed laughter by briefly catching fire. Questions followed. Did humans use scent markers to signal affection? No, unless you counted deodorant. Were physical gifts part of romantic bonding? Sometimes, especially if chocolate was involved. Was Dorian willing to participate in a live demonstration of typical Earth affection rituals? He drew the line at public cuddling with a jellyfish. One delegate asked if they'd consider a temporary memory merge to allow council members to experience their connection firsthand. Dorian paled. You want them to mind-watch our first date? Nyari nodded. It would provide context. I don't even remember what I said. I was nervous. I might have compared your eyes to satellite dishes. You said they reminded you of orbital arrays in moonlight, she corrected. Oh, that's weirdly poetic. I liked it. He sighed. Fine. But if anyone sees my dreams about talking sandwiches, I want diplomatic immunity. A spherical device hovered toward them, activated, and began the process. The chamber filled with soft pulses of neural light. Images flickered, moonlight on Karin 5, laughter, shared thoughts, curiosity, the strange intimacy of minds touching across stars. The delegates were quiet. Then the speaker said, This is unlike anything we have seen. A second voice added, You are both absurd and deeply compatible. Dorian grinned. Story of my life. The council concluded with a unanimous decision. Their bond would be used as a pilot model for emotional treaties between species. They were thanked, applauded, and handed an honorary title, Ambassadors of Affection, which Dorian found both flattering and mortifying. Later, walking back through the spire's garden, Nyari turned to him. You handled that well. I'm pretty sure I said, satellite dishes, in front of 12 governments. They liked you. I like you, he blurted. She paused. I know. He cleared his throat. That's not what I meant. I mean, I like you. In the non-symbolic, earth-romantic, want-to-watch terrible movies together kind of way. She smiled. Then you should have said that during the ceremony of joining. I was distracted. There were moons and your mind was in mine, and also I was terrified of farting during the mind link. She laughed long and bright. Then let's call this your second chance. He stopped walking. Right now. Why not? He took her hands. Nyari of Alarith, you're incredible, brilliant, a little intimidating, and I have no idea what I'm doing, but I want to do it with you." She touched her forehead to his. "Then we begin again." A spark passed between them. Not magic, not even telepathy, just understanding. Somewhere in the distance the spire whispered, "This one might actually work." Then coughed and added, "statistically speaking." And for the first time since arriving on Callisto, Dorian believed it. Dorian leaned back in the hover lounger, balancing a cup of Nyari's refined calming tonic, while trying not to spill it on his freshly issued ceremonial robe. The robe had 7 sleeves. He had 2 arms. The math didn't work. "Do I wear the extras on my shame?" he asked aloud. Nyari glanced over from the mirror wall where she was adjusting a small cluster of glowing crystals above her left ear. "The sleeves represent emotional versatility." "I represent emotional chaos," Dorian replied. "Does that get me a poncho?" She smiled without looking. "You'll be fine." The robe's collar started humming. Dorian smacked it. The humming got louder, now in a minor key. "It's judging me. It's syncing with your metabolic signature." It sounds disappointed. They were preparing for the most delicate part of the summit. A private dinner with the Vatharn delegates, sentient insectoids known for their rigid emotional customs and aversion to spontaneity. A single misstep could tank 3 months of peace negotiations. Or, as Dorian preferred to think of it, a great opportunity to ruin galactic diplomacy with a badly timed pun. "Just don't make jokes," Nyari said, reading his expression. "I don't make jokes. I deliver coping mechanisms with flair." Exactly the problem. The dinner took place in a neutral gravity chamber, which meant they were floating. Dorian's fork drifted past him like a disillusioned satellite. He snatched it back and offered a tight smile to the nearest Vatharn, whose compound eyes stared unblinkingly. "Delightful cuisine," Dorian said. "Is it?" Breathing. The Vatharn delegate tilted its head. "It is recently breathing." Nyari jumped in. "He means the presentation is fresh, Earth idiom." "Ah," the insectoid clicked. "We admire metaphor in moderation." The courses progressed in slow, ritualistic segments. One involved taking a cube of fermented starlight and inhaling its memory. Another required chewing in perfect silence while the meal played a short operatic memory. Dorian tried. He really did. But then his cube sang a high-pitched version of Bohemian Rhapsody, and he snorted tonic through his nose. The Vatharn stiffened. One reached for its translation unit. Another raised a limb. "I apologize," Dorian said, wiping his face. "My starlight was more Freddie Mercury than I expected." Nyari whispered, "Keep talking, distract them." "From what?" "From the diplomatic incident you just inhaled." Dorian cleared his throat. "I find your culture deeply fascinating. Your symmetry is inspiring. On Earth, symmetry usually means someone had Photoshop." The tension eased slightly. A third Vatharn leaned in. "Your bonding ritual was observed by our analysis cast. It was chaotic, effective, confusing." "I get that a lot. We require clarification. What is the purpose of Earth humor in emotional bonding?" Dorian paused. "You want a formal answer?" "Yes." "Okay, humor is like static discharge. When our emotions get too big, we laugh. It makes space inside us so we can feel things without exploding. It's how we say, 'This is terrifying and wonderful, and I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm here with you.'" The insectoids conferred in a rapid series of clicks. "Acceptable," one replied. Dorian exhaled. "Please continue," it added, "with more examples." "Oh no," Nyari whispered. "Gladly," Dorian said. "So 3 humans walk into a warp field." By the time dessert arrived, a crystallized thought shaped like a feather, they'd laughed, clicked, and vibrated in what Dorian assumed was mutual respect. One Vatharn even slapped his back, which sent him spinning gently into a chair made of sentient moss. The moss apologized. After the dinner, they floated back through the halls of the spire, past kinetic sculptures that rearranged themselves based on emotional resonance. One shaped itself briefly into Dorian's face. Then it melted into a cat eating spaghetti. Nyari caught his hand midair. You did well. I accidentally made a diplomat snort through their spiracles. And they loved it. I still don't understand your confidence in me. You survive in chaos. I generate chaos. Exactly. They returned to their quarters. A small message orb was waiting, pulsing blue with urgency. Dorian tapped it. A hologram of the Spire's AI unfolded. Alert, it said. The Vatharn have proposed a new tier of diplomatic engagement. They are offering a multi-species emotional coalition, using your bond as its framework. Nyari nodded. We expected this. Dorian blinked. We did. They liked your chaos. I don't even like my chaos. The AI continued. Additional complication not all species approve. Opposition has arisen. There is now a counter-movement protesting emotional diplomacy, citing cultural contamination and excessive hugging. Nyari looked amused. Typical. I'm the face of a galactic controversy, Dorian said. Does this come with hazard pay? The AI disappeared. Silence settled. Nyari said, we'll have to speak before the Unified Council, defend our bond, our methods. You mean me explaining why I panic laughed during a memory opera is now a matter of interstellar policy? Yes. Dorian groaned. I need more robes. You'll be fine. I'm a glorified raccoon with anxiety. Nyari touched his forehead with hers. You're my husband. I still can't tell if that's comforting or terrifying. Both, she whispered. And despite everything, the robes, the diplomacy, the dinner with recently breathing entrees, he smiled. Because somewhere between the laughter and the memory links, he realized he wasn't faking it anymore. He really was her husband. Dorian stood in the center of the council forum, wearing a suit that adapted not just to his mood, but now also displayed a running transcript of his vital signs in 16 languages. His heart rate translated into elegant curves of light. His anxiety blinked in Morse code. One nervous delegate mistook it for a call for help and sent a rescue drone. He waved it off. Across from him, the opposition delegates arranged themselves in sharp, symmetrical formations. They radiated disapproval like a bad Yelp review written in plasma. At the front of the chamber, the council's speaker hovered, a translucent being of shifting color spectrums, and called the session to order. Nyari stood beside Dorian, calm, poised, radiant in a ceremonial Alarith cloak made of thought-sensitive fibers. Her long ears twitched as she leaned in. They're expecting a speech. Dorian swallowed. I was hoping we'd fake technical difficulties. I disabled the microphones, she whispered. His eyes widened. I'll re-enable them when you stop hyperventilating. Marriage is supposed to be about support. This is support, tactical emotional sabotage. He smiled, exhaled, and stepped forward. The council chamber dimmed. The attention of 17 species locked onto one man who never asked for this, never trained for it, and still had soy sauce packets in his suitcase from Earth. I'm not here because I'm exceptional, Dorian began. I'm here because I made a mistake. Several delegates leaned forward. I misread a cultural ritual. I bonded with someone whose world interprets emotion differently. I panicked, joked, fumbled, and over-explained. And through all of that, I fell in love. A low murmur rippled across the chamber. I didn't understand Nyari's traditions, and she didn't understand my fear of deep commitments. But we met in the middle, we kept trying, and somehow that became the point. He glanced at Nyari, who nodded once. What we have isn't perfect. It's not symmetrical or optimized or even particularly logical, but it's real. And if we can find each other through confusion and chaos, maybe that's something worth building on. The projection screen behind him lit up with moments, images from their memory link, gestures of shared laughter, awkward firsts, tender silences, and the infamous diplomatic dinner incident where Dorian accidentally declared peace by sneezing into a Vatharn's appetizer. Emotional diplomacy isn't contamination, he said. It's context. It's the translation layer between species who would otherwise see each other only through protocol. The chamber was quiet. Then the speaker asked, "What if others are not willing to be vulnerable?" "Then don't force it," Dorian said. "But let those who want to try, that's all we're asking, a chance." The council deliberated. Nyari reached over and quietly turned the mic feed back off before he could say anything else embarrassing. Minutes passed. Then the verdict: emotional diplomacy would become an official secondary framework. Participation optional. Guidelines to be developed collaboratively. Dorian exhaled and sat down. The suit changed to a calming gradient. Someone in the back cheered, possibly a jellyfish. Afterward, as they walked through the courtyard of the spire, past fountains that whispered memories and trees that glowed in sync with nearby thoughts, Nyari laced her fingers through his. "You did well." I gave a speech in front of 17 species, while vibrating internally like a nervous tambourine. They listened. I blacked out halfway through the word context. "You spoke your truth." "Next time you're giving the speech." Nyari smiled. "Next time we'll do it together." They reached their quarters, where a new message awaited. It was from the Vaetharn, inviting them to co-host a workshop titled Laughing Without Losing Dignity. Attached was a cartoon of Dorian giving a thumbs up with extra limbs drawn in for symmetry. He laughed. "I think I've become a brand. Just don't sign any merchandise deals without reading the fine print." Too late. I think I agreed to be the spokesperson for interspecies dental floss. He turned to her. "You changed me, you know." Nyari looked surprised. "How so?" "I used to think I was just background noise in the universe. A glitch in the signal. But you made me feel like I belong somewhere, like I matter." "You always mattered." "Yeah, but now I believe it." They leaned in, foreheads touching, breath shared in the quiet hum of starlight. In the days that followed, Dorian and Nyari traveled between systems, not as diplomats, not even as icons, but as a couple who chose each other across uncertainty. They built bridges out of laughter,